Can we learn anything about ourselves, our hormones, and maybe even how long we're going to live based on the time in which we enter puberty and how long it takes us to progress through puberty? And I guess that also raises the question, does puberty ever truly end?
There are many takeaways from puberty. Some of the actionable items from it is, yes, it can and does affect your adult height and also stature and also body composition. So puberty is a time, a free injection of testosterone and metabolism and drive and effort into your life. There's a wide variation in how quickly puberty goes through. So there's stages called Tanner stages. But if you enter puberty very early, then it can decrease your adult height or stature.
So for a given male that enters puberty at 13 versus a male that enters puberty at 15, can we say that the guy that entered puberty at 13 is going to be shorter than the guy that entered puberty at 15, or it's not quite that straightforward?
If they are identical twins and the individual who entered puberty at age 13 also finished puberty, went all the way through the Tanner stages, and if you do a bone scan, which I believe is usually done on the left wrist, and it says, yes, your growth plates are mostly closed, you're not going to grow more than a couple inches of height after that.
Okay. When I was growing up, it was thought, or at least people would say, that resistance training, in particular lifting heavy weights, could stunt one's growth. Is that true or false?
It is false when you're talking about just lifting heavy weights. Dirty bulking certainly has the potential to stunt one's growth for two main mechanisms.
Could you define dirty bulking?
Dirty bulking is eating an excess of calories, not just to acquire lean, metabolically active body mass or get stronger, but purposely acquiring body fat.
So purposely acquiring muscle and fat by overeating,
yes,
and lifting weights can stunt one's growth. Do I have that correct?
Correct. So it does two things. If you're doing it as a very young child, that fat can become leptin resistant, and it can produce more leptin, and that leptin can activate the hypothalamus, which activates the pituitary, which releases gonadotropins, which basically just increase testosterone and estrogen earlier than it otherwise would have. It's the same mechanism behind why childhood obesity causes early puberty.
Puberty in males and females?
Yes, in both males and females.
A young guy, let's say 13, 14, who wants to really bulk up and deliberately, overeats and is doing their squats and deadlifts and bench presses and really trying to get big, they will get big, but only in the lateral dimension. They're effectively limiting their total height, and it can shut down the long bone growth of their limbs. Is that correct?
Correct. The growth of the long bones is mostly related to the estradiol alpha receptor, so basically one of the receptors for estrogen, which can be secondary to early puberty, and also is related to body fat because you have that conversion of testosterone to estrogen.
So can we assume that if a young male wants to get into resistance training, that body weight exercises are probably okay, and maybe even some weight training, kettlebells, et cetera, but that they should avoid doing so-called dirty bulking, trying to deliberately gain weight up until what age? Until puberty is over?
I would say an individual should limit the amount of abnormal body fat accumulation or dirty bulking indefinitely throughout their entire life.
So again, if I understand correctly, that recommendation to avoid deliberate weight gain or rapid weight gain is not just to allow an individual to reach their maximum height, but also to avoid laying down a lot of body fat cells, correct?
Correct. The balance between that is when you are going through puberty, you are able to add a lot of lean body mass, not just muscle mass, but bone mass and other mass as well. If you're consuming dairy and then all of a sudden you cut out all dairy can help increase IGF-1 and free IGF-1.
And just again, for our audience, maybe you just mention what having enough IGF-1 can do for us that's beneficial is?
It helps you grow. It helps with genital development, secondary sexual characteristics, and long bone growth. Skin growth, hair growth, a host of things.
So getting an array of nutrients that include dairy, what other sorts of nutrients are important during development?
You want to have adequate vitamin D. Vitamin D helps with testosterone production. It helps, again, with bone mineralization and stature. After an age of about 25, and there's not a strict cutoff, but up to about an age of 25, optimizing your growth hormone and IGF-1 helps with bone density and bone growth. So from the dietary standpoint, you want to have enough free estrogen, not too much when you're growing, but you want to help basically stockpile bone to prevent a risk of osteoporosis or thin bones fractures when you're older.